naman kayo lahat. Okay, so this topic for this morning is one of the most important complications that we have to deal with, no? Because up to this time, different data. Some will say it's number one, so it depends on the region, it depends on the hospital. Number one cause of maternal mortality, okay? But in some data, among top 10, it's number 5, the latest statistics, okay? So why do we need to deal with obstetric complications? So remember that maternal mortality is part of the statistics, no, that we are concerned with. And then in training institution, we always conduct audits, no, maternal mortality census, no, maternal mortality and morbidity conference. Because remember that maternal mortality serves as a key indicator of both women's health, no, and effectiveness of healthcare. So if you have high maternal mortality rate, kaya nga we have to talk about it, no, during conference. So what are the causes? Because most of the causes are actually preventable. Okay? So in the Philippines, geographic and economic barriers often limit access. Up to this time, we still have barriers, especially hostile areas, no? Like some areas in Mindanao wherein primary care providers are not safe, no? But then they don't stop going to those places, no? So we have doctors to the barrios. So I'm proud that one of our graduates here is actually a doctor to the barrio, assigned in Southern Leyte, mountainous Leyte. Okay? So nakikipag-communicate lang siya as to their condition there. So safe naman sila. So baka some of you, one of you, may be interested to be the doctors to the barrios. So Philippines recorded, this is in the latest statistics according to Broadsheet Asia. Okay, so in 2023, we have 84 deaths. So actually comparing it in like some in 2010 or 2009, wherein we have a high maternal mortality. That's the reason why we have the Millennium Development Goals, but then it failed. Kasi hindi bumaba ng 53, 51. Okay? So, but they don't stop. From MDG, it was converted to Sustainable Development Goal, the SDGs, no? So if you will Google that sa WHO, they are part of the SDG, okay? And it targets 70 deaths per 100,000 live births by 2030. So medyo, even if we're decreasing, pero may lag. Okay? That's the problem in the Philippines. Okay? And one of the cause of maternal mortality is, of course, we encountered one during the 3rd stage of labor. And that is your postpartum hemorrhage. Okay? So we still have, even in here, in our community, no? So meron pa rin being referred to tertiary institution, no, sa Apex, no, dying because of postpartum hemorrhage. Kahit sabihin mo nang we're urbanized, but we still have delays, no, as to detection, no, prevention, and delay in referral. So we have the yan nga yung purpose ng UHC. The primary level should be able to know when to refer. Pero up to this time, even in the advent of a BMONC, no, the Basic Emergency Medical Training, no, the BMONC, so marami pa rin, midwives, GPs, even clinician, specialists, no, so nadidelay. Okay. So these are the preventable causes that continue to claim lives, no, leaving families and communities grappling with loss. So it starts with inadequate prenatal care, okay? Even hypertension and infection. And obstetrical hemorrhage continues along with hypertension and infection as one of the infamous triad of causes of maternal deaths in both developed and underdeveloped countries. We all know that obstetric is a bloody business. That's according to Dr. Pritchard. No? So, pag nag-OB ka, huwag kang matakot sa dugo. Okay? So, your clerkship, baka mamaya, i-ready nyo na yung sarili nyo, baka himatayin kayo. Okay? So, wala pa akong nakitang hindi dinudugo. Okay? But then, even if it's a bloody business, okay, the reason why every skilled health personnel attending to childbirth must know how to prevent or to detect if it's pathologic. Kasi we all know that physiologically, there's really blood loss, like vaginal delivery. Okay? When you deliver the placenta, talagang may blood loss yan. Even cesarean section, pagka-cut mo pa lang, when you cut the uterus, nagbi-bleed na yung patient mo. Okay? And you have to be skilled, no, to be able to save this woman. And there's the urgent call of WHO to emphasize that every mother and newborn deserves the highest standard of care. Okay? So it starts with initiating prenatal care. So we are the primers in promoting a comprehensive, no, the importance of prenatal care. So because during prenatal care, that's the time you can assess your patient, detect risk factors. Kaya naman up to this time, there are still complications because of inadequate prenatal care. So hindi nila naman gagawin nila. And the purpose of UHC is that every patient, especially pregnant patients, must be taken good care of. Hindi siya, walang delay, and there will always be continuity of care. Hindi mo na pwedeng sabihin sa patient na not available. We don't have medication. We cannot cater your needs. If you're in an institution that you think it's not appropriate for your patient, meron kang contact, proper referral. Saan mo siya dadalhin? Hindi mo siya pwedeng sabihin na wala po kaming ganito dito. Okay? It still happened. Like one case in, just imagine, a training institution na there's a delay in doing cesarean section just because wala daw anesthesiologist. So sabi ko nga, it should not be. Okay? Hindi pwede. Sa dami ng anesthesiologist, walang pwedeng mag-anesthesia sa isang pasyente. Hindi siya pwede. Okay? And that's the calling. Pag tinawag ka, whatever reason you have to go there. Okay? Kaya nga, you're the anesthesiologist, you're the obstetrician. Sasabihin mo, hindi ka pwede. Okay? So that's sad. That's really, the reality. Walang PhilHealth, di pa. Pagod yung pagod, yes, we get tired, no? But that's our calling. So kung ayaw nyo mapagod, ayaw nyo ng mga ganon, change profession. Okay? At hindi kayo yayaman sa pagiging doktor. Okay? So if you're rich, siguro from your parents, pero yung starting from being a doctor to get rich, there must be something. Okay? May mako-compromise. Okay? So, these are the objectives that's in your syllabus. I use Williams in some of the CPGs, some articles, and from UP Postgrad. Okay? So, postpartum hemorrhage, sabi ko nga, it's still the leading maternal mortality annually. So, hindi pa bumababa. It's always 127,000 deaths nationwide. 53% of maternal deaths in the Philippines because of postpartum hemorrhage. Different age group. Kahit yung very young, okay? Teenage pregnancy, dying of postpartum hemorrhage. That is sad. Kasi it's really preventable if you were able to detect it immediately. Okay? In 2011 to 2013, according to Philippine Statistics Authority, it's top 3 cause of maternal death following hypertensive complications in pregnancy. So sabi ko nga, it varies, no? It depends on how the reporting. Okay? So in the Philippines, the only statistics that we get yung mga from training institution because we have that PNSS, the National Statistics System. So every day ko-collect ng mga resident yung nila, yung cases, and then ilalag nila. We have that computer, hindi na nagsusulat. So ipapasok na nila sa PNSS. That's from POGS. Okay? So this is from the Philippine Health Statistics in 2019 under Epidemiology Bureau of Department of Health. In 2019, the number of registered maternal deaths in the country reached a total of 1,458 with corresponding MMR of 0.9 deaths. You will see that the reporting here is 0.9 deaths per 1,000 kasi ganun siya. But when we report, it's the recommended is presenting it like 84 over 100,000. Okay? Mas mahirap kasing i-analyze yung 0.9 deaths kesa dun sa 84 over 100,000. So major concept in understanding pathophysiology and management of obstetrical hemorrhage, of course, we have to understand the mechanism of hemostasis achieved after delivery. So before understanding what happens, the abnormality, you have to understand what is the normal. Okay? So remember that hemostasis is achieved by myometrial contraction, which is the most important, the myometrial contraction. And then you have a normal clotting mechanism. And of course, because of the contractions, you will have obliteration of those vessel lumens. No? So when you do cesarean section, makikita ninyo yung mga blood vessels doon. Talagang yung mga sinuses, very big. Minsan, tatakot ka because of the blood coming out. Okay? But you have to remember, an intact coagulation system is not necessary for postpartum hemostasis because the most important, myometrial contraction. So without myometrial contraction, even if you have a normal clotting system, you will still encounter postpartum hemorrhage. Okay? So, kaya nga, even if you have a very good tone and then you have deranged clotting mechanism, di ka naman nagbi-bleed. Kasi ang importante, talagang contracted yung uterus mo. But if you have a tonic uterus, normal clotting mechanism, postpartum hemorrhage ka pa rin. Okay. It happens kasi after placental separation, just imagine, no, ma-avulse yung endometrium and then you have all those open sinuses. Okay? Kaya that's the goal of your active management. Before separation pa lang, contracted na yung myometrium para hindi ka naduduguin. Okay? So this is from ARCOG, how ARCOG defines postpartum hemorrhage and the classification. Okay, so we have two classification, primary and then the secondary. And they defined it, the postpartum hemorrhage, they defined it as to primary and secondary. Okay, so primary, you have blood loss greater or equal to 500 ml from genital tract within 24 hours after birth. Meron pa silang minor blood loss, which is 500 to 1,000 ml. And then may major, that is greater than 1,000 ml. Okay? And then the secondary, this is between 24 hours and 12 weeks postnatal. Before the Williams 24th edition, they defined postpartum hemorrhage of more than 500 ml after completion of the third stage of labor. But now, there's an updated definition of postpartum hemorrhage. This is according to Warmer KC. Okay, so this is what the definition now, no? Accumulated blood loss of greater than or equal to 1,000 ml or blood loss with unstable or presenting with hemodynamic problems, no? Signs and symptoms of hypovolemia within 24 hours after birth. It includes intrapartum loss, regardless of route of delivery, SBD or cesarean section. Okay? So either greater than 1 ml or even if you don't have 1,000 ml blood loss, basta your patient presented with hypovolemic shock or hemodynamic instability, postpartum hemorrhage na yon. Kahit sabi mong 500 pa lang pero naging hypotensive, pale yung patient mo, that's already postpartum hemorrhage. Okay. So, it is classified, parang same as ARCOG. Okay? You have the early or primary and the late or secondary. So, primary, within 24 hours, and these are the causes. So, you have to, the tone, check for the tone, the trauma, tissue, traction, and thrombin. After 24 hours or 24 hours after delivery, common causes, your retained products of conception, infection, or uterus did not involute, or the subinvolution of the placental site, and problems, coagulation problems. So there are times na, that's why during surgeries, you have to have coordination with your anesthesiologist. Because your anesthesiologists together, you can estimate blood loss. Sometimes pag nag-o-opera ka na, hindi mo na naiisip yung blood loss mo eh. So you will usually ask your anesthesiologist, how's the patient? And dapat you have communication with your anesthesiologist kasi siya ang magsasabi sa iyo, I think you're having blood loss. And before surgery, I usually ask my anesthesiologist what is the allowable blood loss. So that you know how much, or during surgery, nare-ready mo na. Okay? Hindi yung after surgery, doon mo pala malalaman, putla pala ng patient. Okay? This is one problem. Blood loss estimation, di pare-pareho. Okay? Because sabi nga, it's like they compare it to beauty. It depends on the eye of the beholder. So, hindi very keen yung eye mo, kung tingin mo parang maputi lang siya. A lot of anemic patient, they present, they think na maputi lang sila. Okay? Nagtatakip pa nga sila eh. And then with lots of lipstick pa. Pero you can see, you can really tell na pallor siya, hindi siya color ng skin. Okay? So, sometimes, it's inaccurate. Tapos excessive bleeding ka na pala. Okay? Therefore, that's one purpose why patient undergoing surgery, naka-catheter. One purpose of your catheter, that's your evaluation of your blood loss. Siyempre, if you have decreased, if you have blood loss, massive blood loss, ano na-apektuhan? The kidneys. Kaya wala kang urine output. Okay? So you have to monitor, part of the monitoring. Okay? So remember that normal pregnancy-induced hypervolemia, okay, usually increases by 30 to 60%. And this is very important because of you encounter blood loss during deliveries. Parang itong ano naman na yan eh. There is the provision for that. Okay? Because of kaya nga nag-increase yung blood volume to compensate with the losses during vaginal delivery. Just imagine kung hindi nag-increase yung blood loss. Like for example, you're just menstruating, maglo-loss ka ng 500 ml. Buhay ka pa kaya? Diba? Don't you wonder bakit during pregnancy pwedeng mawalan ng dugo ng 500 cc pero pag nagre-regla ka, more than 80 ml lang, nahihilo ka na. Diba? Because of the maternal adaptation. So part part of the assessment, no, this is actually part of the patient blood management, no, with regards to blood loss, no. So minsan hindi lang nagagawa. So prior to OR, you must have your CBC. And then after OR, you have to request para you will see kung hindi nag-change, because one from Williams, another thing that will tell you na baka nag-postpartum hemorrhage is when there's sudden decrease of your hematocrit or your hemoglobin. Kaya nga, aside checking your patient with pallor depending on your blood loss, if you think medyo dumami yung blood loss, then request your hemoglobin. Okay? Walang mawawala doon. Okay. So, how do we compute for the maternal total blood volume? For non-pregnant, so this is how they compute, of course, the height, the weight, divided by 2, that's the blood volume for non-pregnant. Okay? For pregnancy blood volume, so it increases to 30 to 60, calculated non-pregnant. It decreases across gestational age and will plateau at approximately 34 weeks. So this is how the formula for allowable blood loss. Ang magaling dyan, anesthesiologist. Sometimes, hindi na kami nagko-compute. Tatanungin ko na lang yung kaya if you plan to be surgeons, dapat magaling yung anesthesiologist mo. Okay? Kasi savior din siya. Okay? Alam niyang gagawin niya during surgery. Kasi pag nag-o-opera ka na at natotoxic ka, dapat kasama mo yung anesthesiologist. Sometimes he will tell you the management. Anong gagawin na? O I have to give volumes. I have to replace volumes kasi ang dami mo ng blood loss. Even yung mga uterotonics namin. Sometimes anesthesiologist na magsasabi what to give. Okay? So I just want to ito tandaan ninyo because it's not in the book. Okay? How to compute blood loss. Kasi pati yung mga gauze mo. Okay? Oh, remember, a cherry, yung maliliit na yan, gauze, yung bilog na cherry. You know cherry? Nakakita na kayo? You know cherry? That's the parang cherry balls. Yung gauze na binilog. One cherry is equivalent to 10 ml blood. Yan yung pinagpupunas. Okay? So, kung nakasampu na siyang cherries, marami na yan. Okay? 4x4 gauze, yun yung 4x4, the usual. That's 5 ml. Okay? And the suction machine, the bottle, the collecting bottle, that's 2,000 ml na. But during cesarean section, you have to ask kung yung 2,000 ml ay puro blood. Kasi, anong kasama doon? Amniotic fluid. And then, meron pa, like, for example, nag-wash. Kaya dapat, before the amniotic fluid, check mo kung may laman. And then, pag may amniotic fluid, pinapa-measure na namin kung ilan yung nasuction na amniotic fluid. And then, the blood. Okay? Baka kasi, lahat yon, even amniotic fluid, 2,000 ml. Kidney basin, that's 500 ml for kidney basin. Okay? And then, blood clots, that's not equivalent to the blood. Okay? So, if you have by grams, it is multiplied 2 to 3. Kaya if you have 50 grams na clot, that's already 100 ml. Okay? Kaya dapat kung madami, like a kidney basin. So, yung kidney basin mo, puro blood clot. Doble mo siya. That's already 1,000 ml kung 500 ml ang ano. Okay? So, it doubles. Okay? So, what are the risk factors for developing PPH? Okay? So, actually, this is already, you can already assess this during prenatal care. Who among this patient predisposed or at risk of PPH? You start with your prenatal care. Starting, ano ba yan? Age of your patient, the parity of your patient. We all know that multiparous patients are at risk of PPH. So if you have those kind of patients, so syempre, discussion about PPH. So anong gagawin ninyo after delivery? Okay? So risk factors for PPH may present antenatally or intrapartum. Okay? So you can predict, you can already identify who among this patient. Kaya nga, like for now, we have very good ultrasound. We already can identify even placenta accreta, no? So yung mga yun, ready ka na dapat. Okay? During my residency, wala pang ganung karaming sonologists. Kaya placenta accreta usually bumubulaga na lang when we do our cesarean section and when we see bag of forms. Okay? Because they are not detected by ultrasound. But now, we have good sonologies and we can detect accreta. Okay? And we have increasing accreta because of what? High cesarean rate. No? Left and right, CS. Kaya, if you have a patient, gusto niya, CS na siya ng CS, you have to explain also the complications, no? The possible accreta. In my practice, I have siguro 1, 2, 3, 4 accretas. Okay? And one last accreta, actually, former student, now a doctor, na nag-accreta. Okay? So, clinician must be aware of risk factors for PPH and should take this into account when counseling. Very important, you have to counsel that patient. And if you think she's having prenatal checkup in a primary level, so you have to transfer that patient if that patient cannot be delivered in your institution. Huwag mo nang kuhanin. Okay? And always remember that for all patient delivery, ito hindi lang, for me, it's not just yung may risk factor. Dapat may blood bank. Kasi you never know eh. Even simple vaginal delivery, pwede kang mag-postpartum hemorrhage. Okay? It should, if you're delivering you're in a secondary level or primary level, kasi like rural health center, birthing clinic, make sure lang na meron kang makukuhanan na blood. Okay? Hindi mo alam kung saan ka kukuhang blood. That's one problem pa, why we have dying patient because of postpartum hemorrhage. Late replacement. No? Siyempre, anong mangyari if you have late replacement? DDIC na yung patient mo. Once transferred to the tertiary institution, hindi ka na makahabol because of delayed management of postpartum hemorrhage. Even simple blood, hindi pa na-replace. So, you know this, no? The tone, tissue, trauma, thrombin, okay? So, these are the underlying causes of PPH, the 4 Ps, okay? So, when we say tone, that's the atony, the uterine atony, the most common, uterine atony. And then the tissue, most common, retained placenta, or sometimes clots. Kaya nga by ultrasound, if you request for ultrasound, sometimes makikita mo blood clot. That's why it's very important after delivery, you check immediately the completeness of the placenta. Hindi pwedeng uwi na yung patient mo, tapos bigla may retain. So you have to check the placenta. So if you think parang may chunk na missing dun sa yung missing cotyledons, check mo. You have to check before transferring your patient to PACU, to room. Okay? There are cases like, ano ba yung minsan difficult to detect, yung mga subcenteriate lobe. Kasi, the placenta may present complete. Kaso kasi meron palang extra, there's accessory lobe. That's the most common cause of retained placenta, yung mga subcenteriate. Okay? Then trauma, okay? Vaginal, cervical, or uterine injury, and then your thrombin. So either pre-existing or acquired. Okay. So as to etiology, okay, and risk factor for the 4 Ts processes, okay, so these are the several etiology. So if you have twin pregnancy, polyhydramnios, so prepare your patient. Especially now we have different uterotonics, okay? So dapat alam mo nang i-dictate ano yung appropriate uterotonics for your patient. Plus, we already have recommendation with regards to the use of tranexamic. So sometimes after delivery ng baby, okay, So your anesthesiologist will tell you, can I start with tranexamic? Because you have to also be within 1 to 3 hours, give that tranexamic. Kasi kung late ka, it will not work. Kung dugo ka na ng dugo, kahit mag-tranexamic ka, hindi na mag-work yan. Okay? And you must know, among the uterotonics, ano ang best for your patient. Like carbetocin is not therapeutic. It's preventive. Okay? If you have this kind of patient, bago pa lang, sometimes instead of giving oxytocin, we go straight with carbetocin. Hindi mo pwedeng pagsabayan yung dalawa because it will not work because they will compete with the oxytocin receptors. Kaya sometimes, nabigay yung oxytocin and then tonic pa rin and you want to give your carbetocin, you will notice the anesthesiologist will remove the fluid from the line na may oxy. Kasi magko-compete sila. Okay? So, if you have prolonged labor, okay, so that's another indication to give or prepare for your management of postpartum hemorrhage. Okay? So, all of this may cause atonic uterus. Trauma, okay, so presentation of patient with trauma, contracted yung uterus mo, and then bleed pa rin ng bleed. So if you have a very contracted uterus, pero nagbi-bleed ka, so of course you have to check the vagina, you have to check the cervix, baka lacerated sila. And what will cause lacerations, okay? So kaya nga, if you have big babies, assisted vaginal delivery, you have to inspect cervix, vagina. Kasi baka most likely meron kang lacerations. Okay? So even malposition, when you do your partial breech extraction, so you have to inspect. Kaya nga with the checklist, pinaka-last doon, inspect vaginal and cervical laceration. You have to do that. Kaya nga even ENC, after delivery, prior to checking the completeness, syempre kailangan mo munang i-check yung lacerations. No? And then check for the completeness of the placenta. Uterine inversion, also either trauma and traction. Some of the T's, meron kasi silang traction, which is the uterine inversion. One reason why part of the ENC is the controlled cord traction because of the risk of uterine inversion. Ito, madalas nangyayari when sometimes from coming referral from like sa mga line-in, especially if they are not trained, if they don't know how to deliver the placenta, they don't know how to anticipate, like a multi-gravid patient, so you know na pwedeng malambot yung uterus and then you do strong traction, pwedeng sumama yung uterus. Okay? So this is just an example of laceration. This is a laceration of the uterus. It happens, no? Especially like, for example, yung mga big babies, no? And then inadequate yung incision and then delivered. Minsan, kaya nga you have to perform an adequate incision kasi mas mahirap to repair if it's laceration. Pag laceration, you don't know what structures will be involved. Especially, pwede niyang ma-injure even the uterine artery. And remember, the uterine arteries during pregnancy, hindi yan maliliit. Minsan, they're as big as your thumb. Okay? And just imagine if you lacerate that uterine artery, baka dumiretso ka na ng hysterectomy. Okay? Because it's very difficult dahil they have a very, very thin membrane. Hindi na sila katulad ng mga arteries na that they have that tunica media, kaya medyo matigas. So, genital tract lacerations, no? So, we have classification as to the one is anterior perineal trauma, So anterior perineal trauma, it involves the labia, anterior vagina, urethra, or the clitoris. And then we have the posterior. Posterior, it will involve the posterior vaginal wall, perineal muscles, and even the anal sphincter up to the rectum. The reason why they recommend or we advocate restrictive episiotomy. So they recommend more of perineal massage, okay? Because episiotomy, depending on what type of episiotomy, more common, the median episiotomy. That's why urogynecologists will not recommend median because of risk of what? OAC. Okay? And what do we mean by OAC? Okay, so if you check again, laceration, so you have the first degree, you have the second degree. The OAC, it involves the third degree, and then you have the fourth degree. Okay? So the third degree, that is the most concern because it already involves the anal sphincter. So for 3A, that's less than 50% of your external anal sphincter. 3B, more than 50%, and 3C, both anal sphincters. And then you have your fourth degree because it already involves the anal sphincter complex. Okay? So that's why the Urogynecology Society, they recommend the third degree and fourth degree as maternal morbidity. There are still institutions who will do intentional median episiotomy para daw magkaroon ng laceration. And then, syempre, for skills. But it's unethical actually because we have morbidities from OAC. Number one morbidity, the anal incontinence. Okay? And then, your fistula. Okay? So, for OAC, you have to be trained to perform the repair. Because if you don't repair it properly, not coaptating, especially the anal sphincter, ano mangyayari? Incontinence pa rin. Okay? You have to bring back the integrity of the muscles. No? And then, two types, either end-to-end or the overlap. Okay? So actually, there's a training, a workshop for OAC. Kasi not all can repair. So, if you don't know how to repair OAC, you have to refer that to a urogynecologist. So sometimes, for assessment, for the integrity of the muscles, no, external and internal anal, sometimes we ask the urogynecologist to assess para hindi magkaroon ng problem. And once a patient, once they already encountered OAC, repair of this kind of laceration, especially fourth degree, their recommendation na they don't recommend vaginal delivery for the succeeding pregnancy. Kasi masisira lang lalo. Masisira ulit. Okay. So hematomas, another problem of postpartum hemorrhage. Okay. So you have after delivery, okay, you have to check. That's the reason why when we repair episiotomy, okay, you don't do your first stitch yung exactly at the angle. So you have to give like 1 centimeter above the angle so that you can ligate those vessels that might retract after sutures, okay? And then you have to assess, okay? So sometimes after doing the repair, we try to compress para at least you can compress vessels that may bleed later on, okay? And for small hematomas, not all hematomas should be evacuated. The small hematomas can be compressed lang, and then watch out. You have to monitor. You can monitor, okay? You can give your tranexamic, no? So sabi ko nga sa inyo, savior ang tranexamer. We cannot operate without tranexamic acid. Okay? So you can give that kasi very good for control of bleeding. Problem with types of hematomas, you have to be mindful because there are hematomas, especially hematomas occurring at the supralevator hematoma. because it has connection. Remember the Colles fascia, okay? So pwedeng it may extend upward in the paravaginal, between leaves going up hanggang dun sa broad ligament, and then you will have retroperitoneal hematoma. It happens, no? Kapag medyo mataas yung hematoma. Kaya you really have to inspect the cervix, no? The cervix before, if you encounter difficulty in delivering the fetus, like yung mga assisted vaginal delivery, mga macrosomic baby na pinilit mong mapaanak ng normal, so you have to inspect that. Okay? And you have to check. When you have hematomas, of course, always go back to your patient, assess for hemodynamic instability. Okay? So you have to prepare for blood if you plan to evacuate that hematoma, and of course, analgesia. Okay? So, call mo yung anesthesiologist kasi hindi ka makakapag-inspect if painful. Nagsasakit yung patient. One clue that the patient is having bulbar hematoma. Ang complaint niya, usually, aside pallor, so parang may bumubukol. There's a mass in that perineum na parang sometimes they will complain, hindi nila maintindihan, parang they want to defecate, no? And then when you inspect, there's big hematoma. Okay. So of course, this kind of hematoma needs surgery. You need to evacuate. Just imagine, itong hematoma niya na, akala nyo, ito, you trace the catheter. This is the catheter. So ito, buong ito, hematoma. Okay? So if you're the resident and then you're calling me with this kind of hematoma, ano ka na? You pray. And when I was a resident, my junior, I keep on telling them, don't do forceps pag madaling araw. Okay? Para we don't have this kind of problem at yung madaling araw. Okay? Na wala ka na rin matawag na consultant. So this one, if you see this one, okay, it's a mass. It's a bulbar mass. So of course, they're still wrong diagnosis. Okay, we get patient, ang referral nila, prolapse submucous myoma. Kapapanganak lang. Okay? Myoma or bulbar mass. Okay? So, no consideration that it's actually the placenta. So, pag hindi nyo naman na-identify, if you're the primary physician and you don't know how to refer this one, papatawag ko kayo. Like for example, kitang-kita na yung umbilical cord. You see this one? So, anong diagnosis nyo dito? Ha? Ano no? Placental? Increta? Ha? Pag nakakita kang ganyan. That is vagina. Vagina yan. Hindi, ano unang-unang papasok sa isip ninyo? Ano siya? Ha? This is a case of uterine inversion. Bago kayo umabot sa mga akreta, that morbidly adherent placenta, pag dinala sa inyo yan, at nakita nyo naka-attach pa yung placenta, huwag nyo iisipin kagad yung morbidly adherent. Ang isipin ninyo, a case of uterine inversion. Okay? Kasi, just look at this one. This is the placenta. This one is actually the inverted uterus. Okay? And what is the cause of possible uterine inversion? Possible na akreta. Hindi siya humiwalay at pinilit na i-deliver yan. Okay? So, presentation of your patient, of course, the patient will present with excruciating pain. Just imagine naka-invert yung uterus. Kaya nga, this patient, aside the postpartum hemorrhage, one cause of shock is the urogenic shock. Kasi nag-invert siya. Okay? So this doesn't happen only in like sa house delivery or kahit in our institution, kahit cesarean section nga na-invert because of the strong traction of the cord. Okay? I have one resident, kakaumpisa pa lang ng CS niya, nag-inversion siya because of the vigorous traction. Okay? And you have to identify. Paano nyo ma-identify? Nawawala yung fundal. Biglang wala yung fundal in part of the uterus. Pag nawala yun, at parang may dome na, you think of uterine inversion. Kasi sometimes uterine inversion, it doesn't happen complete. Merong stages yan. Okay? So, puerperal inversion is due to displacement of the fundus of the uterus, usually occurring during the third stage of labor. So, you have to assess din the patient of the risk. Ano ba ang mga risk for inversion? Prolonged labor. So, remember that the uterus also gets exhausted then because of your uterotonics, no? And then, sometimes, ifufundal pa yan. Okay? So, napapagod din siya. You don't have a very good toned uterus, kaya pwedeng it will come together with the placenta. Okay? Yan, akreta. If you try to deliver, you can have uterine inversion. Okay? And the mortality, it's because of aside the blood loss, also the urogenic shock because it causes too much pain. Okay? Yan. So sometimes when you do your bimanual exam, diba? Kapapanganak lang ng patient, you have to feel that you have to feel a contracted uterus present siya sa abdomen. And when you do your internal examination, your bimanual, wala kang makapang uterus. Right? Check mo, baka itong nakakapa mo, it's already the fundus. This is uterine inversion. Okay? So it's supposed to be like this. So after delivery, you can palpate the uterus at the umbilicus, no? Umbilical area. Pero when you do your bimanual, wala kang makapa, check mo, baka uterus yung nakakapa mo. Okay? So you have acute, that is immediately within 24 hours, but it also happens after the first 24 hours, or sometimes within 4 weeks, but it's not common. Or even there's chronic inversion after more than 4 weeks. I haven't encountered postpartum with subacute inversion or chronic inversion. Pwede pa yung mga non-pregnant because of masses. Okay? So as to the degree of inversion, you have the first stage. So pag first stage, konti lang. Parang yan, konting dent yung fundus. Okay? Do not cross the cervix of the uterus. Second stage, you will see, meron ng inversion. Okay? So, uterine base, cross the cervix and pass through the vagina. So, may mapapifeel kang mass when you palpate, when you do your internal exam. Third stage, you can see now the uterine base at the vulva. And fourth stage, this is the complete inversion, even the vaginal wall participate with the inversion. Okay. Bumaliktad na lahat. Okay. So about tissue, okay. So retained placenta, and also, yan, common, the abnormal placenta subcinturiate, and sometimes we have now focal accreta, no, a chunk of that placenta retains, and then one reason for that, baka focal accreta. Okay. So always remember when to say that you're having abnormality of the third stage. So remember, the third stage of labor, usually it's within 5 to 15 minutes na de-deliver mo na yung placenta. It is prolonged if more than 30 minutes. So more than 30 minutes, di mo pa rin na de-deliver. Okay? So that's already prolonged third stage. So placenta not removed, what will happen? Of course, uterine muscle will not contract normally. Basta pag nandiyan dyan yung placenta, it will not contract. So blood vessels, sinuses do not constrict. So you have your severe bleeding. Okay? Kaya sometimes we do what? Manual removal of the placenta. Pero kapag hindi pa rin nagse-separate, think of placenta accreta. Okay? So this is an example of accreta. Okay? That is the uterus. This is already hysterectomy. So you see there's no delineation. Parang part na siya ng uterus. Okay? So if you have placenta accreta, diagnose, you have to ready your team. Okay? Wala na siguro nag-o-opera mag-isa lang sa accreta sa panahon ngayon. Okay? In surgeries, don't be a hero. Hindi yun ang ano natin sa surgery. Yung you want to have a prestigious name, heroic name. So that is not how we operate. Okay? It's always patient-centered. So this is the 3 types of accreta. Accreta, this is morbidly adherent in the myometrium. Okay, but if it invades the myometrium, that's your increta, and once it penetrates, involving the bladder, the pelvic side walls, that is already percreta. The reason why, if you will notice the recommendation with accreta, like increta, percreta, usually we deliver them early. Kasi we don't want the further growth of or further invasion of the placenta. If you have percreta, the recommendation is to deliver at least 34 to 36 weeks or 34 weeks. Kasi if you allow the progressive migration or invasion, baka hindi mo na ma-separate yung placenta. Okay. We encountered already a very, very difficult percreta that we decided to treat medically. Before, it's recommendation to give methotrexate, but now it's not the recommendation anymore to, they want to do outright hysterectomy. Okay? Because they have seen my experience with methotrexate. After several, you really have to monitor. Kasi once there's plateauing of your beta-HCG, ibig sabihin hindi pa talaga nawawala. So you have, the patient will bleed. Okay. Good thing is that at least during the hysterectomy, because at the time of diagnosis, it's really very difficult. Lahat involved pelvic side walls, wala ka ng, or you don't have any space. So we decided to give methotrexate to shrink that placenta. So, but we reopened after 3 weeks because of bleeding, massive hemorrhage. Pero at least lumerit naman yung placenta, and now we have planes. Okay, that's the problem with succinylcholine. So ito may iwan, but you have a complete cotyledons. Okay? So if you have complete cotyledons and then you still have retained placenta, think of a accessory lobe or succinylcholine. But some sonologists can already identify by ultrasound na there's a possibility there's a separate lobe of placenta. Okay, thrombin, and that's already part of the history. And of course, the health, so are the patient who will have health, your preeclamptic patient. And then, consider history of your patient. Sino ba? Like your APAS patient. So you have to prepare because your APAS patient, most likely they have anticoagulants, no? The heparin, okay? And aspirin. That's why for aspirin, we stop aspirin as early as 35. Heparin, you can stop the day before, no? But aspirin should be stopped 1 week prior to cesarean section. Okay. So recognition of this risk factor during prenatal checkup provides opportunity to prevent PPH or at least minimize its magnitude and to plan for management. Okay? So prognosis, so proper and vigilant monitoring of immediate postpartum patient. So hindi lang tayo nagpaanak. That's the reason why you have to monitor every 15 minutes. They stay at the PACU. And before transfer, you have to check everything. You have to check the tone of the uterus. You have to check if there's no hematoma. So, pinabubuksan ko yan. There's no bleeding. And then, transfer to ward. And then, you have to endorse properly to nurses. So, ano ba ang titignan nila? So, sometimes, there's a delay in referral. Dinudugo na pala sa ward. Okay? So, nurses should also be able to refer patient. Okay? So readily available blood and blood products. Okay? So you have to, especially if you have like Previa, twin pregnancy, dapat naka-ready ka. Hindi yung, especially now that patient cannot get blood from blood bank, di ba? It should be hospital lab to lab. Hindi ka na pwedeng magpatakbo ng relative to get blood. Okay? So should be coordinated hospital to hospital. Adequate operating facilities. Okay? So don't operate kung kulang-kulang yung operating room mo. Okay? Kahit gusto mong kumita yung hospital mo, mamamatayan ka naman. And always alert your team. Okay? Ready with your team. Hindi yung like you have ACRETA. So with ACRETA, I ready my gyne-onco, I ready urologist or urogyne, I ready even surgeons for complications. Kasi mas better na ready na yung team mo kaysa nagtatawag ka. We have that kind of scenario before, but syempre may evolution now with regards to practice. And of course, part of that, syempre meron pa rin worth yung experience. Like if you have dying patient, you have patient who died in your operating table. Okay? You will not forget that. Okay? Mamatayan ka lang ng isa, ayaw mo nang gumising. So that's the problem in obstetrics. So you don't know. Parang, what's the difference between the IM and OB? Kasi IM, matatanda naman. And OB, you have young patient. Diba? I mean, maraming morbidities. Katumawa dyan, mas maraming comorbidities kasi, di ba? Kaya nga they're used to having like, parang yung mortalities nila mas mataas because of morbidities and the age of their patient. So OB kasi, you have the obligation to send the patient home well, the mother and the baby. But sometimes it doesn't happen. Either patay si baby or patay si mommy. Okay? So parang mas mahirap siyang ma-accept ng community. Okay? So, hindi siya ganun kadali. Kasi you have a young patient na supposed to be, hindi siya mamamatay. Tapos bigla, you have dying patient. Kahit sabihin mo nang ito yung problema, hindi nila naiintindihan. Kaya in other countries, mataas ang liability, ng OB. Mataas ang insurance niya. Compared to IM. Kaya nga in other countries, they don't want OB. So prevention, anticipation. Okay. So 2/3 of women who suffer PPH have no identifiable risk factors. This is true. Wala mang risk factor yung patient mo, pagkatapos bigla na lang dinudugo siya. So, it happens. Sometimes nga, sabihin mo, konti lang blood loss. Pero when you do your rounds, tachycardic, hypotensive, paputla-putla ng patient. Okay? So, you cannot say na yung diaper niya na nag-soak lang minimally or moderately, tapos hindi siya nag-PPH. It matters to know the hemoglobin pre-op because anemia can also cause your PPH. Okay? Remember anemia, di ba? Decreased perfusion, oxygen. So it involves also the uterus. So pag walang oxygen, titigas. Okay? The reason why we have this active management of the 3rd stage of labor as compared to before. yung physiologic or expectant management. Kasi studies have shown there are more PPH with expectant management. Kasi hintayin mo pa eh. Di ba ano ba yun? Wait for the signs of placental separation. Tapos you have that sudden gush of blood. Eh yung palang sudden gush of blood na yan, 500 ml na. Okay? So, we compared, even in my practice, I compared the expectant and the active management. Kita mo talaga, mas better, lesser bleeding. Kaya nga I don't even give ergo tablets now. Just the Uterotonics Oxytocin IM and no bleeding. Before, mag-oral methyl ergo ka pa. Okay. So this is actually best practice for prevention of uterine atony. Okay. So these are intervention designed like giving your uterotonics to speed the delivery of the placenta. Bakit mas mabilis? Because you have increasing the uterine contractions. And after delivery of the placenta, you have already a contracted uterus compared to the physiologic or expectant na hintayin mo pang the change of shape of uterus, the uterus going up, you wait for the lengthening of the cord, at saka hintayin mo pa yung dinugo siya. Okay? And then there's two type of placental separation, the Duncan and the Schultz. Si Duncan dirty, si Schultz shiny. Okay? So these are just comparing the active and expectant management. It has really good evidences. Okay. So we all know it's part of E and C. Okay. So you're within 1 to 3 minutes. Okay. So after drying your baby and then covering with dry towel, okay? So you already, so syempre sometimes this is with your si pedia, ina-assist na niya yung baby, but you instruct, it should be before delivery of the placenta, you already have your uterotonics, IM, okay? And then you have your delayed, your properly timed cord clamping. So, kayo kagad magka-clamp. You have to check for the pulsations, no? So this is very important and recommended. And then your controlled cord traction for delivery of the placenta. So you have wag strong. Fundal massage, actually, it's not already a recommendation, especially if you have already a tonic uterus. Hindi mo na kailangan i-massage pa. The only time that we do uterine massage if you still don't have a very good contracted uterus. And then, of course, you have to monitor uterine tone every now and then. Okay? So, ito, dapat alam din ninyo what are the effect of blood loss. Okay? So that you will know, pagka naka 1,000 ml ka ng blood loss, what will you expect? So, of course, kaya nga sasabihin mo sa anesthesiologist, so, kumusta na yung heart rate ng patient? Kasi mukhang parang 1,000 ml na ako. There's no need to repeat, or do we need to repeat hemoglobin immediately? Okay? Or paakyat mo na yung blood? Okay? So we have to be aware with the effects of hemodynamic, the losses, the blood loss. And then check urine output. Okay? Kaya nga if you have encountered PPH, even vaginal delivery, maglagay ka ng catheter, so that you can also monitor for urine output. Okay. So, correlation of blood loss to blood pressure and clinical signs and symptoms. So, this is still up to now. Okay, we still use this. So, this is the classification of WHO of postpartum hemorrhage. So management, of course, meron tayong basic principles, no? So airway, blood pressure, if you have so syempre if you have talagang hypovolemic shock, we co-manage with IM na. Because if there's need for vasopressor, yung mga ganun. Pero toxic na yung patient na yun, ayaw namin ng ganyan. Dapat nasa ano lang kami, nasa replacement of volume. Okay? We don't reach the magpapadobutamin ka pa, tsaka ano, toxic na yung pasyente mo nun. Okay? Nagngangawa na yung consultant pag ganyan na nangyayari. Yan na yung mga senaryo sa ADCON. Okay? Na kulang na lang kainin ka. So kapag you have toxic duty, pag nag-a-ADCON, before, hindi na siguro ngayon, kung pwede nga lang magsuot ka ng mga kapote, kasi sa sobrang dami ng murang aabutin mo. Okay. So siguro ngayon, I don't know, sa training dito sa private, medyo malumanay na. I don't know sa government set up kung malumanay na sila. Okay. So primary consideration, so of course, check what's causing the postpartum hemorrhage so that you can control the bleeding. Okay? So blood products before, this is the practice. But of course, you have to take note. Diba, meron na tayong massive blood transfusion, drill, code. Pag massive blood transfusion, if you think massive na, there's code. Kasi you have to prepare how many units of blood, your PAC-RBC, your fresh frozen plasma, your platelets, because you have to prepare kasi with blood loss, massive, nawawala na yung other components of the blood. And remember that the ones that we have, yung mga stored blood, they don't have those blood components. Di ba namamatay? Okay, sino ba medtech dito? Di ba yung mga ibang components kagad namamatay, they don't have that. And the PAC-RBC, it only contains the red blood cell. Kaya nga before, they want freshly extracted blood. Pero ang hirap kasi nun. Okay? But now we have patient blood management. Okay? This is also very important now if we're dealing with problems, mapa-OB, gyne. It's very important, the pre-operative assessment, your intra-op assessment, and the post-operative assessment, because patient blood management, it advocates restricted blood transfusion. Okay? So, para maiwasan yung massive blood transfusion, you have to be ready. Pre-operative pa lang na ready mo na yung patient because we want to avoid a massive blood transfusion. Okay? So, you can Google this. You can find the patient blood management, the 5 drivers shifting the paradigm from product-focused transfusion. So, this is evidence-based, and it's an approach to improve patient outcomes by managing and preserving patients' own blood. Remember that when you do blood transfusion, that's parang tissue transplant. Okay? And then, decision to do medical or surgical management, of course, it depends on the cost. Okay? So, surgical intervention, if you maximize all the medical management, syempre, go straight with surgical. Binigay mo na lahat yung uterotonics mo, nag-massage ka pa, you think it's not working, open up the patient. Ready your team. Okay? It should be initiated immediately. Hindi yung ang tagal mo magdesisyon. Pag hindi talaga nag-work, diretsuhin mo na kaysa mahuli ka. Okay? It's difficult to do surgery pag DIC na yung patient mo. Even if you remove the uterus, bleed pa rin siya ng bleed. Okay? So this is just an algorithm from our POG-CPG. Okay? So we still follow this, the standard medication, your uterotonics, your massage, your hemostatic, and then if you think you can do conservative measures like the non-surgical, the first line by manual uterine compression. So if it's working, no, the rationale for checking by manual uterine compression, if it's contracted, if it nagko-contract siya sa bimanual uterine compression mo, most likely it will respond with compression surgeries, the compression sutures. Pero kung hindi siya nagre-respond with your bimanual compression, most likely that compression sutures will not be successful as well. And then the vaso-occlusive, your uterine artery ligation, hypogastric artery ligation, okay? That's why competencies, the surgical competencies of residents, identification of uterine artery, and doing the ligation, okay? So we have this algorithm, the hemostasis, okay? So for uterine atony, of course, first line, your uterotonic agents. So you must be able to know which one to give first. So the recommended is use oxytocin, okay? But if you think you are prone to have postpartum hemorrhage, they recommend the carbetocin right away, okay? And then your ergo, as long as your patient is not hypertensive, kasi hindi siya pwede. Okay? And then your carbopros. Problem with carbopros, you have to check kung walang RH problem, RH negative or what? Asthma. Hindi siya pwede sa asthmatic. Okay? And misoprostol, problem with misoprostol, it's not FDA, but kasama yan sa tackle box namin. Under the table. May nagde-deliver sa mga OB. Separate yan sa mga patient. Ewan ko sa mga patient sa sila kumukuha. Okay. Yung sa amin, medyo may pagka-legal. Kasi kailangan namin. We need misoprostol. Okay. Because after we exhausted everything, we have to try the misoprostol. We insert 4 to 6 tablet rectally. Okay. So this is the pharmacology of uterotonics. You can read on this. Okay. So we only have few drugs in OB. I hope you can make your drug index para pag pumunta na kayo ng clerkship, pag tinanong kayo, you can explain, hindi yung clueless. In IM, napakarami niyan. But in obstetrics, we only have few drugs that we use. No? Even in our antibiotics, okay, we have those usual antibiotic, because if beyond those broad spectrum antibiotics, we refer them to IDS because of the antimicrobial stewardship. Hindi kami pwedeng tumaas pa sa mga cephalosporin or clindamycin. Pag nasa piperacillin na yan, we refer to IDS. Okay? So you deciding conservative and complete, or the complete surgical management, of course, know your patient. Is she desirous of pregnancy? So very important, mga primary patient. Of course, you have to try fertility preservation. Kaya nga, you maximize the uterotonics. Okay? Maximize everything. Don't forget your tranexamic. Okay? Don't be late with giving the tranexamic acid because it's present in the Cochrane if you want to read about tranexamic use. Okay? No, easier to decide if your patient has completed family size after maximizing, go straight with hysterectomy. Ang mahirap lang kasi, minsan mag-decide, young patient, tapos one baby pa lang, and then postpartum hemorrhage, cannot control, very atonic uterus, no choice but to remove. Okay? In government setup, they have lots of that, 18 years old na hysterectomy. In my practice, the youngest, 17. And that's what we tell to teenage, you want to experience PPH, matanggalan ka ng matres at the age of 18 years old. Ang mahirap pa, pati baby nawala. Diba? Okay, so these are fertility preserving. That's the bimanual. This is the bimanual compression. Put your fist inside, And then, try to compress sa posterior para iipipin mo siya. Compress mo ganyan. Pag iipipin, bigyan mo naman ng time. Okay? And then, wait hanggang mag-contract yung uterus. Okay? If this will work, most likely your compression sutures will work. Okay? So, uterine artery ligation. So, usually if we don't, during cesarean section, we encounter bleeding, especially dun sa incision site, then we go straight with uterine artery ligation. Okay? Para hindi na lang nahuhuli. Okay? So, this is your bimanual uterine compression. So, inserting the right hand inside the vagina, anterior aspect of the uterus. So, babaliktad mo siyang ganyan. Parang mag-meet si anterior and then posterior. So, para mo siyang kinompress. Okay? Para siyang sandwich. So, other temporizing measure, external aortic compression. Sometimes, no, dito sa tiyan, makikita mo, i-compress nila yan. So that you can try to temporize, no, the bleeding. Lalo na if you're waiting. So, try to compress the abdomen. Okay? Yan, ganyan. So, has been traditionally accomplished manually with the provider applying pressure with a closed fist on the abdominal aorta. Okay? So, this decreases blood flow to the pelvic organs while providing supply to the surrounding organs. Okay? So, for uterine artery ligation, if you have time, magandang i-separate. You have to isolate, no? So you can, pero if you don't have time, and block lahat na dito sa side. So in performing that, syempre you have to know the anatomy. So dito yung uterine artery. So when we do uterine artery ligation, ito, dito sa kilikili. Yan. Syempre bilateral yan. Okay. So these are the ligation. You can do your ligation first here. You can do also your ligation here, dito sa ovarian artery, to try to stop. Okay. And then you can do your uterine, the internal iliac ligation. But in doing that, you have to check the ureter. Baka mamaya pati ureter na ligate mo. For this procedure, usually we already have a gyne-onco on board. Okay? Yan. So, very important to identify kasi baka mamaya itong mga vessels na veins ang maano ninyo, ma-ligate. No? Okay. So, hypogastric artery, very good success rate in controlling uterine bleeding. Okay. Yan. So makikita mo naman, you can feel it's the external kasi palabas siyang ganon. Internal, papasok siya. And you have to feel the common iliac para you have to feel the bifurcation so that you can identify nasa ng internal iliac. And it should not be the posterior division that should be ligated. Baka pag itong niligate mo, kinabukasan din naman makalakad yung patient mo. May numbness siyang nararamdaman. Okay? Because this supplies the gluteal part. Okay, sa baba. So it should be the anterior division. So this is just to show you the hypogastric artery indication. Okay. This is just a picture of ovarian artery ligation. Kung hindi mo nakuha dito, akyat ka dito. Tapos pumunta ka na sa ibang parts. This is the compression sutures. This is the most common. This is the one that we do, the Billings suture. And this is how it looks like. This is our real patient. Yan, parang no? How do you imagine? Chicken? So we use monofilament. There's a monofilament suture. Pero malaki yung mga namin dyan, na PDS, usually PDS. Nagbuntis pa naman ang patient na to after compression. This one, not so, this is a modification of B-Lynch. Okay? This is a Hyman suture and this is the Pereira suture. Sutures are like suspenders, parang may suspenders sila. And then the packing, uterine packing. Very common yung Bacri, the one that you put inside the uterus or a balloon catheter para you just compress or just a simple gloves. Ipasok mo, lagyan mo ng instilled water kung wala ka talagang makita. Okay, so it can compress the endometrial surface. Yan. These are uterine packing. You can use your Folicat, instilled water. Hydrostatic condom. Some of this kasi kaya they're not available. Aside expensive, hindi naman usual, and especially now, you try to prevent, di ba? Kaya it should bring down your postpartum hemorrhage. Kaya natitira, gloves. So you can put that in still water and then let your glove. And this is spearheaded by Dr. Atencio, our consultant in ISAB. Or the packs, roll, pasok mo. Okay? Problem with packing, you have to, after packs, you have to check. Kasi problem, nagpupuno pala, you cannot monitor, may bleeding pala, kasi nakapack eh. Okay? So you have to check your patient. And of course, you have to give have to give your antibiotics. Continue with your antibiotics. So this is the disadvantage of uterine packing. Okay? Uterine perforation, avulsion, kasi makapal eh. And risk of infection. Pero pag no choice, sometimes we do that. Sometimes nga, di ba, meron yung naka-open, and then dahil bleeding doesn't stop, we leave the pack. And then, we will just go back. Okay? Once corrected na, all the bleeding parameters corrected, and then we go back and then remove the pack. Okay? So, uterine inversion, how do we manage that? So, if your patient has uterotonics, number one that you have to do, remove the uterotonics. Kasi you have to relax the uterus, hindi mo mababalik yan. And call for help, call anesthesiologist because you cannot bring back the uterus because this is very painful. Kaya dapat well sedated ang patient. So sometimes the anesthesiologist will give general anesthesia, anesthetic para to relax the uterus. Okay? So you have to push the fundus back, and then once stable, you don't remove your fist inside, nandun lang, wait hanggang maging contracted yung uterus, and then once stable, you can start your uterotonics. Okay? So this is the Johnson's maneuver, the vaginal approach, reposition. So you have to reposition. So dapat relax yung sedated yung patient mo. And you have to prepare blood products, ha? Once you have So there's debate. So the one picture that I showed you, the one with placenta, will you reposition uterus with or without the placenta? Ang gagawin niyo? Tanggalin niyo? O balik niyo? It depends. Okay? It depends on your skill. So some, if you're very quick and ready, some will say, tatanggalin. Pero syempre, if you remove that, that will cause bleeding. Kaya they will just bring back pati yung placenta inside, and then once na stable, deliver. Kasi once you deliver that, minsan you have the bleeding. E di mag-aatoni ka pa rin. Diba? Kaya nga, sometimes uterine inversion, especially for multigravid, ending up hysterectomy na. But you cannot perform hysterectomy without bringing back the uterus, the fundus inside. This is very difficult. And this is how it looks like inside pag wala yung matres. Okay? You cannot see anything. This is already the bladder, the ovaries. O wala yung matres dito. Ganyan ang itsura niya. So, it's so difficult. Kaya nga, I haven't encountered abdominal approach. Just imagine how difficult it is. Like, you have that Huntington procedure, Holten procedure, pero most likely difficult to do. So, laceration, always remember adequate anesthesia, antibiotic coverage, okay? And then, it should be layer to layer, the position. Before, with cervical laceration, they don't recommend repair. But now they recommend repair of cervix because of risk of cervical insufficiency in future pregnancy. Kaya nga i-repair mo na lang. Okay? Uterine rupture, of course, it depends on the damage, the injury. So sometimes, if still desirous, primy patient, so you try to repair. Pero if you think it's really damaged na, so go straight. Kasi wala na rin. Like this one, di mo na ma-identify. Parang puro dugo na lang. Okay. Akreta, isa lang ang sagot dyan. It's not anymore recommended to give methotrexate, but do hysterectomy. Go straight with hysterectomy. But before doing hysterectomy, we still give uterotonics kasi you have to maintain the tone of the uterus. Perforation, it can be non-surgical. You can observe, you give uterotonics, not immediately. When we mean perforation, paano yung malalaman? Once you're doing your curette, pumasok yung instrument mo, parang pumasok na lahat. You don't need to open up immediately. You can observe. Give uterotonics because remember the muscles, the myometrium, nagko-contract yan. And it's enough to contract and seal that perforation. But of course, if patient presented with acute abdomen, hemodynamic instability, may bleeding, then open up. Okay? Huwag ka lang aligaga. You have to check muna yung patient. Okay, you're retained. Either you do curettage, uterotonics, antibiotic, except kung focal acrita, ang problem namin dyan, pag focal acrita, sometimes it's difficult if vaginal delivery. Kasi you don't know kung makukuha mo siya. Kaya what we do for focal, we can give methotrexate for those cases para lang mawala or necrose yung ano. But you have to monitor your patient. But for cesarean section, we try to remove that focal acrita and repair the damage, repair the defect. Okay, kung maliit lang naman siya. Dissecting hematomas, okay, you have to drain, you have to either and then pack, okay? But for smaller, packing kahit hindi mo evacuate. Okay? So this is the principle for pelvic hematomas. Remember that venous bleeding is more troublesome than arterial bleeding. So you can do pressure muna. If you think it's not working, and then do the intervention. In bleeding naman, always try to compress. Always try to control by packing. Hindi yung tahi ka ng tahi, tahi ka ng tahi. Okay? Control mo muna. Pack. Okay? So, this is the difference between a venous bleeding and arterial bleeding. Arterial, ang dali lang. Cautery mo lang. Pag venous kaya, kikita mo, nagbe-bleed. Kaya sometimes we have to suture. Okay? But be careful when suturing. So, principles for uncontrolled bleeding. So, always take note. Saan galing? Okay? So, if you think you still need to check, pack ka muna. You don't have to suture ng suture. Basta pack ka muna and identify saan ang nagbe-bleed. Allow your patient to be stabilized by your anesthesiologist. Okay? Call for help. Huwag niyong kakalimutan yun. Okay? So this is just, I don't have kasi it's in one of our book. This is just an algorithm on how to deal with postpartum hemorrhage. You can take note, and then the causes. And these are just some best practices of some institution, okay? Like they have the checklist posted at the delivery room, labor room, okay? Para nakikita ng lahat. Okay, this is good practice. This is part of our patient safety to post all the complications, so that everyone will know. Okay. Here we have the checklist. We follow the hemostasis here at AUF, and it is also part of our OSCE examination of our resident. And we have that PPH kit. It should be separate from the e-card. We have the tackle box that is seen either in between labor room and DR, para pag sinabi mong PPH kit, dadalhin na ng nurse sa'yo. And it contains all the management for postpartum hemorrhage, included their mga fluids, Foley catheter, lahat-lahat, medication. Okay? So prevention, it's very important to assess your patient antepartum, intrapartum, know the risk factor, okay? And then, of course, take note of your capacity, the capacity of the hospital, your institution. Is there available blood? Assess your patient antenatally with regards to anemia, okay? And all medical facilities should have protocols for dealing with PPH. Okay, so you have to inform everybody. So I have few kasi part pala ng yung amniotic fluid. So amniotic fluid embolism, though rare, pero it happens. Ito yung pinakamahirap i-explain sa mga relative. We have patient up and about, low risk, walang ibang problem, and then suddenly after delivery, biglang dyspneic, and then hindi mo na mahabol, and then you will call the relative, wala na yung kanyang wife. This is really very difficult to explain. Pwedeng medico-legal case yan, kasi wala eh. Okay? So, pathophysiology, this is caused by intravenous embolization of meconium-laden amniotic fluid. This is the likely potent cause of symptomatic AFE. It results in rapid cardiorespiratory collapse and problem with cardiorespiratory collapse, there's DIC. And then nagbi-bleed yung patient. Wala pa akong nakitang nag-AFE na nabuhay. Puro sila dead. Okay? Disruption of maternal-fetal interface allows material from fetal compartment to enter maternal circulation. And it leads to, of course, this will lead to activation of pro-inflammatory mediator similar to SIRS. And then there's pulmonary vasoconstriction and hypertension. Actually, AFP, ang bilis-bilis nito. It's really very, hindi siya magandang experience. Kasi wala eh. Ang hirap niyang i-survive. So these are the causes: pulmonary hypertension, tapos you have the right ventricular failure. Kaya when you all deliveries, all surgeries, kailangan yan talagang dumadasal ka. Hindi pwedeng wala. Kasi hindi mo alam what complication will you be having. A simple case of normal delivery, maya-maya nasa ICU ang patient. Okay? So this will lead to left ventricular dysfunction. Then you have your cardiogenic pulmonary edema. You have your acute respiratory failure with severe hypoxemia, then shunting develops. And then there's now your multi-organ dysfunction. Okay. So incidents, so they said, from the Society of Maternal Fetal, how to anticipate yung mga mabilis, rapid labor daw. Okay, so you have to watch out. And then mga meconium stained amniotic fluid, those with tears, okay, large pelvic veins. So sometimes during cesarean section, kaya nga when we try to nick the amniotic fluid, okay, dandahan. Kasi sometimes they said, pag frank rupture, you know the sinuses within that uterus, ang lalaki kasi, doon daw pumapasok yung amniotic fluid. That is how the amniotic fluid will seep in. And then, magpupunta na sa pulmonary. Okay? So, those patients like postpartum, labor induction, patient eclampsia, and cesarean section. So, you have to be mindful and very keen with regards to the symptoms of your patient. So, classic triad, abrupt, biglaan kasi, patient will be dyspneic, and then hypoxia, tapos wala na. Okay? So, abrupt hemodynamic and respiratory compromise with DIC. So, problem, even if you survive, you have to continue monitoring bleeding parameters. Kasi yun yung complication niya. After that, because of the activation of pro-inflammatory substances, nagdi-DIC yung mga patient. And of course, you have to watch out fever. Kasi nagpi-fever because, di ba, pumupunta sa lungs, parang presented with pneumonia. So you have to cover that. No specific diagnostic lab. Kasi, ano bang ipinapagawa nila? Sometimes, autopsy. And even autopsy, wala pa kaming a lot of cases of autopsy na sabi lang nila, the pulmonary contains the squamous cells from the amniotic fluid, even hairs. Management, syempre, resuscitation and advanced cardiac life support must be initiated without delay. Problem, laging ang bilis eh. Kahit immediately na na-intubate, minsan because of the severity of the problem, ang hirap. ECMO, has been described in treatment of AFE, and then immediate evaluation of coagulation parameters if this patient survive, okay, because it will have concurrent management of bleeding. Okay. So in summary, for postpartum hemorrhage, because the amniotic fluid embolism, why part it was included in the concept of obstetric hemorrhage because of the bleeding, the complication once a patient survive AFE, and it will cause bleeding because of DIC. Okay? So know the cause, either early or late, and remember the 40s, because that is how you will evaluate and manage your patient. Look for the cause. Dapat hanapin nyo muna, hindi yung puro lang management. Okay? Identify the risk factor. This can be identified during prenatal check-up of your patient, or even intrapartum. Nag-labor na twin, placenta previa, you know the complication. Pre-eclampsia with magnesium sulfate because of seizure prophylaxis. Nagtagal yung labor. So those are all risk factors for PPH. And know how much blood can be lost per procedure. Talk with your anesthesiologist. Know your allowable blood loss based on your hemoglobin pre-op. Okay? Know your hematologic parameters. Kaya nga hindi lang CBC ang titignan nyo lahat yan. Okay? And then, don't forget active management of the third stage of labor and not waiting for signs of placental separation. You have to be active. Give your uterotonics immediately, okay? Either your oxytocin or your carbetocin. And then, initial step, anticipate. Nagde-deliver ka, tingin mo, dahil malaki itong baby na to, you anticipate. Kaya you will tell, ready me your uterotonics. And then, call for help. If you think it's pathologic, call for help. Huwag kang magpaanak mag-isa. Don't do your surgery alone. Gusto, kung ayaw nyo magmumroblema, tawagin nyo lahat. Okay? Para may kasama ka. Okay? So, always remember, the mark of a good surgeon is knowing her own limitation. We are not heroes. And knowing when to ask for help. Okay? So that's for PPH. So I hope you have you can understand PPH. As primary care provider, dapat you can identify at your level. You can identify complications. Okay?
Okay.